Welcome to this Solid Edge video on Solid Edge 2022 Mechanical Design Enhancements. So let's have a look at some of the enhancements. So for the last few versions since ST10, there's been a lot of work on the portfolio. And a lot of users haven't seen the small enhancements that people have wanted. So in 2022, the development team has said, let's go through and do some real nice core CAD enhancements. So a lot of small enhancements that you may have noticed been little annoyances in the past. So one that I used to do a lot of frames, and you can only trim to a single frame. Now we can do trim to two frame elements in any order they were created, which would have really helped me 5 or 6 years ago when I was actually creating a lot of frameworks. So, but let's have a look at this. So first we're going to jump straight into assembly design and have a look at some of the new options. So with Solid Edge 2020, we had the large assembly mode. Following on from that, we've now got this new assembly preview mode. So this allows us to quickly open the assembly, and it then allows us to decide what parts we want. So we can show parts, hide parts, decide what configuration. This is all within a very quick preview mode on here. So we can decide exactly what we need and then go and edit the assembly once we've decided what area we want to see. Because quite often, if we open up, especially from Team Center or directly from Windows Explorer, we're going to end up opening the entire assembly as it was last opened, and it could take 20 minutes for it to load because there's thousands of complex parts in that assembly. So this is a new environment. We can have this turned on or off, and we can use selection. We can use configurations from the configuration drop-down list. We can use we can decide on the view that we want, so we can see the parts that we can hide or show. We can decide on the style that we want it to come in. We can locate it graphically and use the assembly Pathfinder, and then we only load what is then shown in the preview on there. So this gives us reduced load time because there are less parts showing. So there's no modeling done in this environment. It's intended just for fast opening and reviewing, and then we can set what to edit by hiding the content. We've also got a new tool called a load progress dialog box. People have been asking this for quite a while. So it shows 3 stages of load and update. So the first stage is to load the assembly files, second stage is to update the assembly, and then the third stage is to display the assembly. This displays during the file open and during the edit from preview. It can also be stopped. So if we've opened the wrong assembly, we can click on the stop option. It doesn't kill Solid Edge, just stops this process. So we can then just go and close that file. So next we're going to have a look at assembly gusset plate. So this is aimed for the frame, but it is a little bit more flexible than that. So available in assembly and the frame environment. Creates gusset plates as internal components. We'll get more onto internal components later. Can be created on any assembly components, not just frames, so quite flexible there. Can be created on planar and cylindrical faces only, so no B-spline curve, surface style faces or any really complex geometry on there. We've only currently got a triangular shape support in this at the moment, but I have heard off development that there are plans to have some other shapes added in there in the future. Alignment and offsetting options available. So you can see we've got the thickness options, and then where we've got the profile sizes. Once we've done that, we then get those offset options available as well. It's associative to the faces on which the gusset is created. So if we do go and change that face, delete that part, the gusset is going to no longer be there. It's going to have a broken link. How do these then show on the drafts? So we'll get assembly reports and draft parts lists supporting these gusset faces. There's uniqueness criteria similar to frames, so we can see exactly what style gussets we want on those. So we've got mass, gusset stock, which is kind of like a bounding box parameter, or actual parameters of the gusset itself. So we've got this as an option in our settings options section when we're in a draft, so we can see those different options shown on the right: mass, cut-in stock, and gusset parameters. So we can see where those are from there in the parts list properties options tab on there. So we can then go and use these either as a gusset or with the parameters on there. So you can see 3, 4, and 5 in the example on there, showing the sizes. So we've got 100 by 60 by 10 mil thick, 50 by 50 by 10 mil thick, etc. for those different items. And then we've also shown the uniqueness from the mass and the quantity total on those. So next we're going to have a look at something called internal components. If you saw the release on the 6th, you'll have seen Dan Staples talk through internal components slightly. So the idea of this is that we've got certain things that we want that we want about to do. We've got our multi-body modeling, but this allows us to do multi-body modeling in the assembly environment, and allows us. So sheet metal, people have always complained that we can't do multiple thickness materials in multi-body modeling. Well, we can do that in the assembly now, and do what is really just multi-body modeling, but with a lot of the constraints removed, because we've now brought it into the assembly environment. So we've got the freedom without the interpart links. We've got assemblies in a single file, so we'll have just one single ASM file with its accompanying CFG file, obviously. So it means that if we've got data management, we've just got that single file while we're doing our development work. Multi-material models, massive option, which we couldn't do previously in multi-body modeling. We always had to do that save out option. Enable assembly operations in a part. So that's kind of what we're doing on here. So we're kind of working like a part, but we can do our assembly relationships, etc. Allow more part operations in assembly. So by doing this, we've now got a lot more path style tools, such as sweep command, etc. in there. Directly insert a foreign file into an assembly. We've also got that available as well. So what is this assembly modeling? So it's a new environment to model internal components in an assembly. So it allows the users to create and edit internal components using a multi-body modeling method in the assembly. No part files are created on the disk. Internal components live within the assembly file, just like in previous versions of Solid Edge. User interface and workflow will be similar to create part in place. So how does it work? New internal components can be created within the assembly or while in the assembly modeling environment. Creating or editing an internal component in the assembly opens the assembly modeling environment, and the model can be synchronous, ordered, part or sheet metal, like in Solid Edge part. A single model tree is used for all the internal components, as in multi-part modeling. So each internal component can have multiple bodies. Internal components can be instanced and patterned within the assembly to create multiple occurrences of it. Patterns of bodies within the modeling environment will not create occurrences in assembly, but are local to the active internal component itself. So one thing that I mentioned at the start is material support. So we can assign material directly from the material table using the right-click shortcut menu per body. So you can see we've got this new purple icon on the right, and you can click on there and you can go and assign a different material to each of those parts, even though each of those parts is really just a couple of bodies potentially. Extended this behavior to these part occurrences. I just said that. Works with multiple part internal component selection. So we can select multiple parts at the same time and apply material to multiple parts at the same time. And then we've got the standard tooltip. So if you hover over it, it's going to show us the same kind of items. So we can see that part has been created in place. It's been grounded automatically, and then we added that material on there. So material physical properties are now supported in internal components. So this is shown in the assembly and the draft. So we can see we've got each of those separate items showing all the properties on there. So we've got the door, the frame, the side leaves, and the screw, and they may all be in the same assembly file. No parts created, but we've still got all of the separate information for each of those parts, and we can retrieve these via callouts, as we can show in the top right image, parts lists, and anywhere we can use that reference text information. So part internal references from internal components. So we can drag and drop internal components in if we need to. So we can use this to place a internal component in. And then we can go and add assembly relationships if we need to. We can also go and copy these using the steering wheel. So if you do select a internal component, we can copy with Control or with a little square icon to go and copy that. We can pattern internal components. It is ever so slightly limited, but most of the normal pattern commands are available. And we can also transfer within the internal component master assembly. So when we are creating internal components, we don't just have to create parts. We can create assemblies as internal components as well. So if we decide we need that to be in a subassembly, we can create the subassembly, new internal component, choose subassembly, and then we can go and transfer an existing internal component into that subassembly ourselves. So another new option. So at the top of Pathfinder, we've got our component finder. So we haven't got to go up to the command bar and try and find this, or use our search tools or anything. So we can just find this at the top of Pathfinder. And we've also got autocomplete option there as well. We've got autocomplete somewhere else as well, which is actually quite nice. So we'll cover that later. So we can use this to go and find parts, and it's going to go and highlight those parts once you've selected those parts. Assign capture fit. So there's been some work on working with assembly relationships. So what we're looking at here is trying to assemble components with less effort. Ability to assign or predefine relationships in the part or sheet metal environment, where previously we've had to go into the assembly, make sure that part is in place first. So use assemble, flash fit, whatever option we want, and then go and grab those relationships. So now we can do it within the part, and we can decide what order and what faces we want it to highlight. So we can consume predefined relationships in the assembly environment. So we've got the option to skip relationships as well, which we couldn't do before. And it allows relationship group name referencing match as well. So there's also a new capability to decide the part polarity to avoid group matching of the same components. So there's 3 modes when we're doing this this assembly placement. So we've got a new icon for items that have had this assigned in the part or the assembly. So we can select part and target elements, same as normal. Select target elements, which is like our kind of capture fit that we're used to, that has been around for as long as 15 years maybe. And then we've got our auto assemble, so we can select the target group one by one, place multiple occurrences at a time using named matching group references. So some really clever stuff on there. There will be a video on all of these things, so internal components, capture fit, etc. All separate ones showing these, so there will be more in-depth information coming on these. So we can also select part group selection as shown on there. So while we're assembling, use auto assemble magnetic using the capture fit mode is another option that we've got on there. Capability to select parity and ignore polarity. Okay, it provides productivity improvements and less efforts. So this is definitely one where we need an example. So if you keep an eye out next week, I will show you. I'll bring a video for that one. Reference point cloud. So point cloud information has been around for probably 5 years. We've had people scanning point cloud, and if we've had to bring that into Solid Edge, we've had to do a long process using MeshLab or Cloud Compare or something along those lines to go and bring it in. Look at some of my previous videos. I think I've shown you how to do that, but now we can bring this straight into the assembly environment within Solid Edge. So these are typically used for brownfield installations, or we've got quite a few rail customers that go and scan some old rail equipment. I was about to say 40 years, but maybe 40 to 50 years old now. The stuff that they're doing. So sometimes they're fitting certain safety features into some steam trains that need to be there for some reason. So they're scanning the information. So we can go and have a look at those. So this within Solid Edge, it allows us to visualize and evaluate the Solid Edge models in the context of the point clouds. So it allows us to go and bring those in. Allows us to go and view and measure. This is included with Solid Edge Premium only. So point cloud reference. So I'm just going to skip to the end on there. So it creates a graphic display from a point cloud data type. Link is created in the assembly document to the point cloud file. Support point cloud formats. You can see the different formats that we've got on there. There is going to be additional formats options coming in there as well, such as E57 in the future. But currently, if you've got an E57 file, you can download Cloud Compare for free and turn it into a XYZ if you need to. So there's no limit to what we can actually do in Solid Edge, really. Automatic zoom to and start of reposition command options available on there. We've got point intensity and point size options to increase move, rotate, and zoom performance on there. So size, I would probably stay with automatic there, which is pretty good from what I've had to go with on there. The color of the point cloud file can be overridden, so we can just have them all a single color if we need to. And clipping planes can be used to clip sections along a single plane if we need to on there. And then within the graphics window on there, we've also got the measurement options. So we said evaluate, so that means we can go and measure. So we've got measure distance, minimum distance, angle, inquire element, point to point within the point cloud, and measure the cloud point to geometry point as well. So we've got lots of options. So measure point cloud to geometry point is probably one of the most useful ones. So you can check clearance in X, Y, and Z as well. So another command that I think has been asked for quite a lot. One of our customers up north has asked this quite a few times in the UK. Can we suppress single objects within an item? So we can support. This now supports part, subassembly, pipe root, frames, fasteners, end cap occurrences in the assembly environment. So we can do this directly as a right-click option. We can also do this in the variable table as well. So I'll actually jump to the next slide anyway. So when you're doing that in the variable table, it's just adding a 1 to suppress, a 0 to unsuppress in the first or second column, which has got the suppress in there. So a little bit slow, but FOA improvements. So FOA is our family of assemblies. It's our kind of take on configurations within one of our main competitors. We've called it FOA since the mid-90s, so there's no way Siemens are going to change the name on there. So we've got quite a few improvements on here. Capability to suppress and unsuppress operations inside and outside of the table. So inside of the FOA table, we've got that as a local operation. So we can just go and choose that to suppress and unsuppress. It means we don't have to do it the way we used to. Outside on is global change when using edit apply to individual members option if we're doing that as well. Solid Edge Pathfinder and Relationship Pathfinder displays the suppressed objects with a suppressed state. So we've got our little no entry, and you can see Relationship Pathfinder is going to show that those relationships are broken, but they are still there in the background. Enhanced update mechanism, so support for FOA member out of datedness on here. So we've got a new little option, keeps the out of dated FOA member with out of date status for downstream use if we need to. Visual indications for out of date FOA member in there, similar to family of parts, if you know family of parts. Capability to save only master source and activate member on document save. So normally when we do normally I show people, where's my mouse? I show do save, select all, save all ones. So normally go 1, 2, 3 across there. And when you do the third one, you'll get a save master. So this is just going to save the master without prompting and updating all the members on there as well. So this improves performance on the intermediate save option, because we may have 20 members in there and we don't want all of those members saving. It might take a minute each or so. Filter option to display suppressed components in Pathfinder. It's available in both FOA and normal assembly. So that's just deciding if we're going to hide or show those suppressed options. So if you are going to use this command, make sure that other users know that you are using this command, otherwise they might go and bring those parts in again. So just be very careful. Other FOA improvements, so we've got these options for undo and redo are now available. So you might remember probably ST10, we had undo and redo for update drawing views, place drawing views, etc. So more support for undo and redo. So we've now got these, also got this in other options such as pipe root, frame, tubes, assembly, features, relationships, variables, FOA. So anything that we go and change in here, we've got these undo and redo options. Also support for replace part inside and outside of an FOA as well. So we'll get any kind of FOA changes will now appear as an undo and redo. So match coordinate system as a single relation. So faster creation of match coordinate system relation. It's easy and quick edit with fewer clicks. Capability to suppress and unsuppress this as a single relationship. It now has support for a suppression variable. It's a single entry in Pathfinder and relationship manager itself. So just kind of made that a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, and a bit more control on there. So looking at capture fit, we've now got support for center plane relationship and coordinate systems available. So previously capture fit has been limited to the kind of relationships we've done. So now we can see we've now got those additional options. Match coordinate system as a single relationship. So that has enabled us to be able to do that because we've had that change. And the center plane relationship support in capture fit. You've then got to go and select the two target elements that you want that to go to. Because remember, it's always the first one is single or double, chosen from the drop-down list, and then we can choose where that is going to go. So a much easier and faster way using these newly added relationships available in capture fit. So reference plane enhancements. So there've been some nice enhancements. So the first one is tangent plane in assembly. So we've got the same behavior and interface as part. When we're doing that, you know, all the others weren't actually the same as part, they're all slightly different. So now we've actually gone and changed those to a common edit workflow for the reference planes. So we've got similar options. So you can see we've got our dynamic edit, we've got our reference, our resize plane, our plane display is all very much similar in assembly as it was in part. Just makes it much easier for us to go and edit. So remember, dynamic edit is going to go and change that offset value if you're using a parallel plane. Don't use edit definition, otherwise the value disappears because the plane just jumps to the mouse. So remember, dynamic edit, when you're doing anything, dynamic edit should always be your first choice in my experience. So decals in 2022. So 2021 we had decals, but we had just one style where it just kind of just like pushed it onto the surface, but didn't wrap around the surface now. So 2022 we've added it in both synchronous modeling and assembly modeling. So ever so slightly different depending on ordered synchronous and assembly. So you can see we've got the slightly different command bar, but it's still pretty consistent. We've just got obviously we've got that plane choice in ordered synchronous. We'll have already snapped to the plane, and assembly. We're just going to kind of hover over a face, and then we've got the resize options. So very much the same with a few tiny little changes on those. So the main change here really, apart from synchronous and assembly, is that we've now got this label option. So previously we just had the planar option. So this this follows the face contours. So it's not a projection directly onto the face and wraps the images onto selected face. So it does support more than one faces. And there's options to flip and rotate using the H and V keys on there. So you can see on the nice little image on there, we've got some little warning symbols on there. And we can see that they have wrapped all the way around those faces on there. Let's have a look at improvements to assembly features and assembly-based parts. So I'm just going to skip to the end on this slide. So the idea of this is that assembly features are now aligned with the part and the part multibody commands. So it means that all the commands that we've got in our assembly features now work much more like they do within the part environment. So this improves the performance, reliability when many assembly features are created. So this isn't just the commands, it's actually the underlying software that we refer to as the framework to make sure that these features are more stable and recompute better on there. So this includes all the features we've got there. So we've got cuts, holes, threads, protrusions, welds, and different patterns and mirror commands as well. Also includes assembly generated parts such as frames, adjustable parts, pipes, wire harness, gussets, etc. So everything should recompute faster and be more stable. So reuse part feature commands in framework and assembly. So we've got all new workflows for assembly features. We can graphic locate features via quick pick, which we couldn't do before. So we had 17 ERs fixed on that. And we've got a dynamic edit of features, which we couldn't do before. So just some big improvements if you do a lot of assembly features, because there's only been the edit definition option. You've always had to go to your assembly features box. So some nice features, so it feels more like you're doing part modeling rather than doing a completely separate type of modeling. So reuse part features in assembly. So you can see old assembly features did not recognize multi-body parts. So we would have had to have done something like a union to be able to do that. So new assembly features do recognize multi-body parts. No need to activate the assembly body with newer files, but left in place for legacy reasons. So we have still got that activate, but we'll cover that in a minute. So what we'll do, when you're doing a cut in multi-body, and you've got the little icon, you've got two little rectangular icons with it's split, dark blue on the top, light blue on the bottom, and there's two icons, cut active body, cut both. That is now available in your assembly commands. So you can see before, we're just going through that first component with the 4 holes. Second, so look at the 2 lower views, we can see that is going all the way through both of those bodies all at the same time. So inactive locate, I've just mentioned this on the previous slide. So there's no longer need to activate parts within commands such as 2D sketch, 3D sketch, PMI dimensions, ERA, IPA reference plane collector, express route, silhouette edges, include command, electrical routing, frame at closure, all those. So the active button has been removed from the commands, so it's no longer needed to activate parts within commands. It's still in the select group at the top though on there. Peer edge locate, so peers is now on by default. So there's probably lots of things that you find during your first session of Solid Edge that you'll go in and you'll turn on. Relationship colors, indicate under constrained profiles, auto dimension when you input a value, etc. There's all those things that certain users will go and turn on straight away. So this is now on by default, and we'll remember that between sessions. So it's copied the 3 toggles to select command group for easier access. So you can see we've got these different options are now within the select command on there. So we no longer have to go to our tools tab to go and access our peers option on there. So next section is Solid Edge Cad Direct. So if you just jump to the end on here because I made some changes. So we've got the ability to insert foreign file formats into our Solid Edge assembly. So useful for supplier collaboration or any kind of downloaded parts that we may have. Avoids the need to translate the files. So you can see the middle lot of images on there. We've got an NX file. We translate it into Solid Edge. We then save it. We then grab that file and we then insert it into Solid Edge and apply our assembly relationships, or maybe even make some changes at that point. So Cad Direct is an associative update with our parent file. So we can bring our file straight in. You can see the icon bottom middle image. We've got our Cad Direct icon coming from Cad into our system with a direct link. So you can see it's a foreign part, green arrow, blue part is a Solid Edge one, and a little yellow link icon on there. And we've got option to update our Cad Direct Link. Just right click on the part. This is in the straight right click menu. And if we break the link, it will then turn that into a Solid Edge component or internal component, depending on how we've brought that in on there. There is no way we can relink that, so you would have to go and bring that part back in. So just be careful if you are doing that break link option. So when we're working with this, all downstream features such as constraints, PMI, projected geometry will update associativity after any change is done to the parent file. So we can see we've got a pump on the left, and it's been updated. The frame structure has been made larger, and then we've got, after the update, we can see all the assembly relationships, V687, 1685 and 1899 are all the same relationships. We haven't had to go and reapply those relationships, and it's still in the same position Obviously we can see one of those relationships is probably to the left-hand edge on there, because we can see how that left-hand edge has stayed in the right place on there. If the faces do change in the original file and the faces are no longer there, you won't be able to pick it up though. So just it's not totally infallible. Frame design. So we've got some real nice options in frame design. So frame orientation and handle points are retained when replacing and adding frames. So we've now got a global option in the frame group for the orientation for frames. Clearing overrides will reorient the frames to this value if you've got those. So you can go, there is in the dialog box is a clear override option. So we can decide on the orientation, where previously we'd have had to click on each element, click on the middle option, and then decide that orientation option on there. So quite a nice little addition on there. We can see if we do replace options with a different cross section, we can go in and change the orientation if we need to by clearing the overrides and changing this global default orientation setting on there. So trim extend option within the frame command now supports selection of multiple tools, faces, bodies and planes. So we can see once we go and choose this option, we've got this option all body face. So pre-2022 we could only select a single element. So we'd either have to go and create an assembly feature, which I spent a lot of time doing to trim up the ends of these, or we'd have to go and change our path offset to make sure that it's half of the depth of the appropriate tube that we've chosen. Solid Edge 22, we can now trim that to multiple faces. So saves a lot of pain there. We've got a new trim extend command for frames. So new command added. So we can trim frames using other frames or assembly components irrespective of the order of creation. So previous, if you were trying to trim a frame that you created later on, you wouldn't be able to trim to that frame. It would just, you'd hover over it, and you would not be able to select that. So it works from frames within group also. Works only from one end of the frame at a time. So when you are doing that, you normally get two little red dots. If you get like a, so you will normally get two green dots. You have to red cross to deselect and then select. When you're doing this, it will only select the one end at a time, so you won't have to do that other option. Supports multiple tools, faces, bodies, surfaces, other frame elements, etc. Supports coping and weld gaps within that trim option as well. Works only with frames created in Solid Edge 2022. The file could have been 2020, 2021, but as long as that frame was created during 2022, we have got support for mixed frame architecture. So frames created in 2020, but as long as the features that the frame elements were created in 2022, you can do these new commands. There isn't a way to kind of update them to the new commands. So if you want to do it with older files, you will have to go and recreate those files. Command is disabled in legacy frame assemblies. So any sections that hasn't got any new frame assemblies in there, you're not going to be able to do it. Assembly subtract command from frames and pipes. So the assembly command. So this is on the features tab. Over on the right hand side of the features tab, where we've got replace face and assembly subtract, we've now got options where we can go and subtract into our frame elements. So it works on frames and pipes created in Solid Edge 2022 only as well. Frame split enhancements. So in our frame options dialog box in the bottom section, normally you have to expand this in the default setting. We've now got a new option, split intersecting frames. Works with next collinear option to decide which frame will split and which will remain complete on those. So previously we would have to go into the sketch, split the elements, come back, make sure single frame for collinear segments is turned off. So now we don't have to worry about that. We can keep our sketches as simple as possible, and we can then split the intersecting frames using this command. Okay, so let's have a look at part design features. So I'll have a look at some of the top end premium highlights first, and then we'll get down to some of the nitty gritty smaller features on there. So Subdivision Modeling came out in 2021. Remember, we've got this in classic and premium licenses only. So if you ever use Subdivision in, or or realised shape in NX. First thing that I noticed was that we didn't have this bridge command. I fed this back straight away pretty much when it came out, and the development team said, yeah, it's definitely going in the next version, and here it is, first option on there. So bridge command is really good. So we can go and create a bridge between two existing subdivision cages. So we've got inputs from and to sections, which will then go and create a curve between those, and it will ask how many kind of inputs we want there. A shape curve is optional. If we'll cover this later. If no shape curve, we'll get a linear bridge, and we can go and just drag those as we would any other cage within subdivision modeling. So you can see on there where we've got we've got one going between two. We've got a one-sided bridge. We've got an open bridge, so we can do just a surface cage if we need to. And then we can do a no shape curve linear bridge, so where we're physically using it to cut instead. So we've got lots of flexibility in there. So next we've got a new offset cage faces. Allows users to select faces of a cage and offset them along their normal direction. So user inputs are cage faces, offset distance, and the number of segments when we use a lift, which is like a straight up value. Using it enter positive or negative values to determine offset side. Supports tip and lift options as with move and rotate. Cage faces are now always parallel to input faces, even in non-linear cases. So you can see it's just kind of drag those up. It's just a better way of doing a lift. So subdivision modeling split with offset allows adding local detail to model without having to split the entire model. It helps avoid non-quad faces. Face edges are offset towards the center and then used to split the face, creating multiple quad faces. User inputs are cage faces and an offset value. Input faces can be connected or not, or they don't have to if we don't need to on those. Align to curve. So I mentioned this earlier. So we can move cage vertices to an existing curve or sketch, or interactively drawn curve, physically draw there and then. Useful for matching existing shapes or design new shapes using freeform curves. User can select or draw multiple curves while in the command until the desired shape is achieved. It's a highly interactive process. We can undo, redo each curve edit within the command for full control of the changes. So this allows us to do our subdivision modeling, but actually have some almost parametric input, because we can physically go in and parametrically define these curves with dimensions or with an equation, which we'll see later. We've also got a lift support for laminar edges. So if you've ever done surfacing, you might use a ruled surface. So it's kind of like a ruled surface, but within this command. So new faces are created when laminar edges are lifted. Faces containing laminar edges will remain open at those edges when lifted. No faces are created when the laminar edges were lifted on those parts. So you can see in the example, the red faces are the faces that have been lifted. Yellow faces have been created as a result of that lift in that direction on those. So next, let's have a look at convergent modeling. So convergent modeling is one of those areas where Solid Edge has always been at the very forefront. And now we support mixed modeling, aka hybrid convergent modeling. So this is a mesh and classic faces. So our BREP models all in one body. Modeling commands are supported. General material and add-in removing commands, such as extrude, revolve, hole, rib, web, network, and more. And even Boolean commands now. So union, subtract, intersect, and split. You can do Boolean of mesh and BREP bodies. Other commands such as section view, set section by plane are supported. Round and chamfer command are also supported, but they will create a mesh face, so not a standard editable face on there. So you can see from there we've got our BREP cutout. We've got a countable hole, a protrusion for a stop maybe, a BREP cutout with a mesh chamfer on there. And then we've got a BREP cutout on the right hand side. So by adding these BREP cutouts in there, and a mixture of mesh rounds, etc., we can make sure that this is fully constrainable without having to do any recognized faces, etc. Other convergent model enhancements is the new show facet edge. Because we've got this option that we've got there, here we can do this show facet edge, controls the display of facet edges within the model. When selected, the command displays the facets. When deselected, the facet edges are not shown. So we can see the facet edges shown on the left and not shown on the right. Generative design. So the big thing here is that the Frustum solver has now been replaced with a Siemens solver. Those in the know will know that Frustum was purchased by PTC about 18 months ago, maybe. So they've been looking for an option to get rid of that. So now Siemens have got their own solver created by a subsidiary company of Siemens called Topology Optimization for Design. So this now has been enhanced to create a parasolid hybrid convergent body, so a mix of mesh and classical surfaces. And we've also got automatic GPU and CPU switching. Only currently supported with NVIDIA. Siemens have said there is no plan to actually do this with AMD graphics cards. So if you've got AMD, unfortunately, you're just going to have to stick with your CPU. If there isn't a NVIDIA, it's going to go and use your CPU. But most solid edge users are going out and spending a decent chunk of money on a GPU. So let's go and use that GPU for KeyShot, which we've been able to do for the last couple of versions, and now we can also use it for our generative design. So how does this differ from the old one? So if we've currently used the old one, maybe that we've just played with the free one, or we've actually used the premium advanced one that gives all the other options. So we'll see that we've got the same kind of supports: force, pressure, torque, and gravity. Remember, gravity was only added probably 2019 or 2020. It didn't come in the initial one. Constraints supported, fixed and pinned. So notice we have lost that sliding on surface option, but there is plans to add that back into the next version. We have got our multiple load cases, so we can run load cases that may be going against each other separately to make sure that we don't end up with a part that is not correct. When we're generating our study, we have got the option to use our factor of safety or our percentage option. And there is support for a progress bar, so we will see how long this is doing. Hopefully it'll be better than the other one that just used to go across again and again and again. And then we've also got our material extrusion and overhang prevention options in there. Again, I will do a video on this for probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks to go through all these in a little bit more detail. So if you're interested in that, have a look, and we will have that video for it. This will be just a snippet video, not a huge one like this one. So those that watched Realise Live would have seen Laura King Allison, previously Laura Watson, tell us about this Radiate command. So this is really cool. So synchronous users probably haven't seen any major changes in a while. So this allows us to simultaneously edit the radii of multiple existing cylindrical, conical, and toroidal faces. Users can define groups of satellite faces that will move radially as the radiate operation is performed. This is synchronous modeling, so the satellite faces are moved radially towards the radiate axis. User defines sets of satellite faces to move together. Design intent is applied when we're radiating. Pattern faces are automatically found and edited correctly during the radiate. And pattern lock dimensions are relaxed during radiate and locked back when the operation is finished. So another command, equation driven curve. So previously we've had to go into the surfacing curve where we can go and pop down X, Y, Z for those, and we've had to go and find these from other systems. So now we've got options for many different curves. You can see the list with a little green arrow pointing to it, the different options that we've got. So it's available in 3D Sketch and in the 3D Draw group, because these are 3D curves, even though some of them are physically 2D themselves. And we have a parametric equation in which X, Y, and Z are functions of t. Dynamic preview of the curve as equations and parameters change. Variables can be used in equations as well as parameters. We do have save settings supported in those. Equation-driven curve can be constrained, connect, tangent, etc. to other sketch elements or other geometry. Equation-driven curves can be split and trimmed as well. Again, I'll do a video on this soon. Sketch context toolbar, so something that's probably going to change the lives of a lot of people that do a lot of ordered sketching. So when we're constraining elements, we can click on a point, a line, and we're then going to get a little context option. So it allows us to connect, lock, measure, do all sorts of different options on there, depending on what kind of point we click on. So horizontal, vertical comes to mind. So if we've created a sketch and one of those lines isn't horizontal, vertical, we can click on the line, and then we're going to get this little context menu come up to the side of the command bar for us. Okay, so note that is left click, just left click on the line, no right click, no press and hold, nothing like that. Just very simple, real nice option. And we can turn that off in the helpers command if we don't want to use that. But anyone that's used any of the CAD system that's got anything similar to that will love this. So great little tool. Okay, so next, solid sweep enhancement. So we've got a new tool in there that allows us to place the tool normal to the surface. So really useful when we're working with circular and round options and creating a swept cutout through that part. With this addition, the tool will follow the path correctly on the circular body, which results in the correct swept cutout. If you tried that in the past, you might have just come up with an error, edit definition, and you've had to go and try and do it a different way. So nice little enhancement on there. Synchronous hole recognition improvement. So here, when we use imported geometry and we've got recognized holes, if we've got partial holes, it's not going to pick them up previously. Now we've got support for partial holes. So it helps improve the editing of imported models. So you can see we've got a partial straight hole on the bottom left there. We've got counterbore, countersink, etc. And it's going to pick those holes up and recognize those for us. User enhancements for extrude, cutout, revolve, and slot in ordered environment. And obviously slot for other options. So now we've got that first option with that single, where previously we've had to do first direction, second direction, or symmetric, or we've had to turn both off, and that quite often confused users. So now we've got a single extrusion option. So we just say, well, just click on the first option, and that will take us back to there. So they're now mutually exclusive. So you don't have to. So there will always be one highlighted. There will be no unticked option on those. Okay, enhancements to the steering wheel. So improve steering wheel usability by snapping to every 90-degree increment during rotation. Also addition, option to rotate to 15-degree increments when the shift key is pressed, same as the line command. These changes work wherever the steering wheel is used, synchronous, subdivision modeling, and assembly modeling. So let's have a look at the changes in sheet metal design. So lofted command UI has been modified. In Solid Edge 2022 allows users to access the pre-2020 functionality of the command. So 3 options are available. Advanced, which is our default option. Bends, which is plates and bends only. Or formed, which is the old pre-2022 behavior. We've also added tooltips for each option to clarify the functionality that each of those is going to add. Bend table angles accurately calculated for all options on those, depending on which one we choose. So there's a little bit more information. So we can see what each of those tooltips is showing for each of those on there. So if you need to have a look at that and read through that, I'll ask you to pause. I'm going to carry on. So 2D and 3D sketching. So something that we probably haven't seen a lot in before, but we've got quite a few changes in here. So improved 2D sketching workflow. So new default arrangement of the command on the sketching tab within the draw group itself. Frequently used drawing commands, line and circle, have large size icons. Less frequently used commands are available from the adjacent drop-down list options, same as they were before. This is also available, so notice we're not actually in sketching, so we would click on line, and then hover over the plane that we want on there. So this is now available directly within the sketching command. So when we're in ordered, so we can see that we've now got these. We haven't just got our sketch option. We've got these options which will prompt us to click on a plane and do it the same as though we've done a sketch, but it takes us directly into the appropriate sketch command rather than just taking us into the line command every time. So you can see that it's also supported in our assembly features within the assembly environment as well. You'll probably, if you've done a lot of assembly sketching, you'll realize that sketching assembly doesn't put you into the line command. So this is going to save a little bit by clicking on the line, clicking on the reference plane. So it's going to make life a little bit quicker for you. 3D Sketch, we've now got Auto Scale Sketch. Those that have used it for a couple of years will remember Auto Scale Sketch coming in 2020. So it's now available on the 3D Sketch ribbon. Similar to the 3D Sketch earlier, we need to switch to the 2D Sketch ribbon to change the setting of turning this on and off. So now it's in the 3D Sketch. 3D Sketch, we've got some additional relationships. Quite often I've had quite a few people asking about this Symmetric command. So now within the 3D Sketch, we've got our make two 3D Sketch elements symmetric. We've got a rigid set command similar to the 2D one available in there. We've got a lock command, so lock's a 3D element or 3D key point, so it cannot be modified. And we've got a route command, so it routes the 3D curve through a part. That's because obviously we've got something else changing as well, so we'll see that in a minute. So 3D sketching commands are replacing the segment command. So when we do go into our frame tool and express route, we won't see the segments by default. So these have all the functionality of the segment commands, plus some other ones which are actually quite a bit better. But segment commands are obsolete, but 3D Sketch will be enhanced and is going to continue to be enhanced. Segment commands will still be available in the customized dialog box, in the commands, not in the ribbon group, if you do want to still use those. 3D curve enhancements. So I mentioned the routing earlier. So now we've got the 3D curve has been enhanced to match the functionality of the key point curve. So users can locate cylindrical faces, allowing to path through a cylinder while creating a 3D curve. And the ability to locate and select cylindrical faces, key points, X, Y, Z points, or no points at all while we are routing that curve. It can be constrained in a particular direction by using the curve direction option on the 3D curve toolbar. Users can apply flip and preview the path of 3D curve between the cylinder ends. Remember, the flip is just the F key if you haven't used that before. Tangency handles can be applied to 3D curve. Users may also choose to control the magnitude of the tangency handles. If you do go to a cylinder, you're not going to get tangency handles, so just be aware. If you are interested in 3D curves, we do an express route course, and I quite like doing 3D curves. So let's carry on. Dimension edit improvements. So in 2D and 3D sketches across all environments, edit sketch dimensions with a single click anywhere on the dimension. Toggling between the dimension to switch between quick bars for easy model modify and dimension style edit in synchronous modeling. So we can see that little icon where it says under modify here. So this switches depending on what we're doing. Are we changing the dimension or are we changing the dimension style on there? So it just improves those options on there. So we can decide exactly what we're going to be editing. The dimension value. So it means we haven't got to click in exactly the right place. We just click on the entire dimension with the connect line, with the connect lines or the actual text on there. Other 2D sketching enhancements. So object action commands. So previously we've had to click on a command such as horizontal vertical and then click on the line. Now we can highlight the line and click on any command, so we can select the object first. This works for most relationships and dimensions as well. So really useful for speeding up our 2D sketching. 2D select tool enhancements. So we've now got information in the status bar at the bottom. So the status bar has been useful in a lot of points, but not here. So now we've got the option where we can smart select balloons, and it's going to show how many we've done. We've also got a color option for connectors as well. We've also added the Smart Select button in the sketch profile. So if you don't use the Smart Select button, one of my favourite buttons, this little icon that allows you to go and select. Quite often you'll end up ballooning up a draft and you've made a mistake. Rather than having to click on each of the balloons, click on Smart Select, click on one of the balloons, click on element type, OK, it will highlight all the balloons, press delete, and then you can go and re-balloon those using the automatic and make sure you get all the balloons correct. Conic Enhancements. So conic curves was only added in 2021. So supports the conic object in 2D Sketch in downstream features. So it's the information that we get from the conic curve is now available. So we can get our curve length, row value, fillet, and all the other options shown on there. And this is available in all the commonly used downstream applications that these may be used in. Symmetric relationship for hole feature. So while we're actually creating a hole in ordered sketch, we've now got an option where we can go and create and tell the holes to be symmetric to the other holes. So only a simple one, but something that probably that a lot of users will find useful if they've had this in a previous CAD system. So enhancements in drawings and PMI. So family of assemblies parts lists. So within parts list there's a drop down now, family of assemblies parts list. So we can go in and show these in a much nicer way. So within this we've now got a new tab, member selection, so we can decide what kind of member we want, and we can show those family of members within those within our parts list on there. Protection lines on dimensions to vertical intersection points. So this is on by default. So protection lines can be displayed between parent edge and virtual intersection point. So this complies with ISO 129-1 and ASME Y14.5, and this can be configured through dimension styles in the lines and coordinates section, I believe. Stacked and skewed fraction styles. So fraction style display, we've now got these three options. So we can see these three different options that we've got on here, and we can show the fraction size on those. So if we are working in fraction imperial style, we can now go and show those in there. Not very relevant to us guys in the UK, but anyone that's still working with imperial sizes can be quite useful. Watermarks. So creating watermarks, previously we've had to do some kind of strange thing in the background to do a watermark. So now we've got a watermark option that allows us to turn this on and off in the print options, and allows us to easily go and edit and do those watermarks and turn those on and off. They can also be linked to the model status as well, so it could be available, released, obsolete, etc. So some quite useful, quite a nice little enhancement available in there. And that's in the drop down under text, under technical requirements. Remember that came in ST8, didn't it? Technical requirements. Format values in whole tables. So when we've got a whole table, if we go into the whole table, we've got a right click option for format values. So we can go and show different round off for different holes. So it means that means that depending on the whole tolerance level we need, we can go and change that round off if we need to, depending on the requirements of the actual models ourselves. Okay. Property text in user table. So this is inserts property text in user table cells. So we can go and create manual values in there. So useful for our drawing frames maybe. So used in drafting to create custom user tables very easily. Property text can be inserted in user table in 3D PDF. Properties in table are updated through update all property text action that we've got available. So user profile fields in property text. So this is something when we're working again with drawing frames and we want to see who it was created by, who it was modified by, and we don't want to be using our Windows login ones. It might just be the computer name, might be a random number. So we can now use the user profile information from Solid Edge options within our drawing frames. So again, I'll do a video on that showing all these draft ones a little bit more information and show you why this is going to be better. And we've got the option on there in the user profile, add the information to Solid Edge documents I create as well. So that's going to give a choosable property, almost like when you make a variable available. Open model from parts list. So only a really simple one. There's been plenty of macros that have done this before, but now we've got an option where we can go into a parts list. So you go into a draft, double click on a parts list so it comes into the editing mode. You can then click on the item that you want and go and open the certain version. Supports family members as well. So with that family member option that we've got on there, that will take you straight into that family member. Be very careful when you are doing that though, because that will take you into the member and you won't actually be in the main master assembly. So be a little bit careful when you're doing that. We've now extended the multi-core processing to derive drawing views. So previously it has done normal each separate view. So now it will do derived views such as auxiliary views, section views, and broken out section views. So we're going to get a faster update of large size drawings that contain principal as well as derived drawing views. Weld symbol enhancement. So we've added some highly requested weld symbols. There's also been some corrections to some previous weld symbols. I haven't actually got a page on that, but some of the weld symbols were slightly out. It might be that they were out of dated or they've been changed in the standards, but they've all been updated as well. So if you've got some weld symbols you weren't happy with, check the ones in 2022, see if they look a little bit better now. Weld symbol enhancements. So we've now got a real nice preview on the side, so we're not having to jump in and out of our weld symbols to go and change those. There's also been a little edit for a tail note as well. So the tail note option is always available depending on whether you want to show it with a box or not. Previously you've always had to show it with a box. So now we can have it as a tail note without the box as well. Retrieve dimensions and annotations on detail views. So we can do that now. So if we've got a detail view, we can click on retrieve dimensions, a little like icon with a little, I don't know, with the hand pointing or hand picking the dimension is the icon. And we can do that with a detail view and go and bring those through. And remember, they will be associative as well. So if that example, the 58, or suddenly I did a tolerance added onto it, that would then update. It would go like a grey colour, and you'd be able to update those options on there. User interface updates. So hopefully you're still with me. It's been over an hour. I do apologise for it taking so long, but we've got a couple of nice things in here. So multi-monitor support. Wow, it's here at last. So graphic windows can be detached from the Solid Edge application. When detached, a window can reside on the same or a different monitor. So let's just have a little video, have a look. So we've got Solid Edge open on our screen 1. And here we've got this in our view tab. We've got the different options, or we can do it from the right click on the tab on there. So once we've done that, we can go and drag that to the window. Let's go and drag that to the window as well. And then go and use the window snapping. Remember, we've got Windows left and right buttons to do that snapping as well. So we've now got these multiple models, and they all stay kind of semi-active at the same time. As soon as you click in, that one becomes active. So we can work on those multiple monitors at the same time, and we can see that. Just be very careful if you've got a low quality graphics card. It might not like this so much. So just have a little, just have a little play and check whether it's going to cause a problem or not. But that's some great new functionality there. General UI improvements. So when we do start a command, the reference planes are going to come on initially to go and create that first one. And if we're using the vertical docking plane, the vertical docking plane for the line command is going to pop up straight away. So if you do want to go and change that, I personally like the small horizontal one because it means my screen isn't constantly changing and moving. But we've got those options available in there. Our command finder, autocomplete. We can see if we go and start typing, we're going to get an autocomplete in those, so really useful. New file commands open to the open page. So under where we had recent shared and browse in 2021, or just within the, I think it's just recent and browse, isn't it, in 2020, we've got these new options. So we can go and choose these very quickly. It doesn't replace using the standard open or new, which will take us to the normal dialog box or control N or control O, etc. Floating license manager. So if we have got any add-ons, so quite often we'll have a company will have a load of classic licenses and I'll have a few express routes maybe. So this will allow you to go and check out express route, and that means it's locked to your machine. You don't have to physically go Open Solid Edge Tools express route and then have it there expressed, have it expressly locked out there. We can go and do that. So a nicer way of doing it. Also allows us to borrow it for a set amount of time as well. User feedback. So Solid Edge developments want to hear from its users, let them know what is working well, if you experience problems with Solid Edge, or if you have ideas for new functionality. So feedback is recorded as part of the Solid Edge product improvement program and helps the team envisage the future of Solid Edge. Information is recorded using an anonymous ID, so not a replacement for using 1PLM if you're in the UK or your own reseller for support. Data management highlights, so still more to go. Dynamic visualization. So this provides interactive access to document properties based on reports containing rules. So rules are easily built into Excel, like filters with interactive tables. Interactive user-defined tables will sort an Excel with sort and Excel-like filters. Color display for your query results. So it creates rules easily from filtered tables. Fast indexing of properties while assembly loads. Export reports to be shared with other users and other assemblies, and the support for standard or custom properties, as well as in-session status for as modified since last saved. There's a great little example on here. So this shows 3 rules with custom colours and specified rule names. The report has been given a name and is saved in the current assembly. So you can see we've got our purchase parts, our machine parts, hardware components, and then any unfiltered object or a light blue ghosted out color on there. So update status info. So updates information for all documents in a managed or unmanaged assembly without having to reopen or activate the entire assembly. So update status info checks whether documents have been modified by another user since opening in the current session. Info is displayed in Pathfinder. For managed documents, the command retrieves information such as checkout status, checks for new versions and new revisions. For unmanaged documents, the command checks if a new version of the open file is available and retrieves document status information from the unmanaged documents. If a new version is available, it is indicated in Pathfinder. So we've got that nice little blue option on there. Get latest command reloads indirect components with the latest copies available in both managed and unmanaged. In unmanaged, get latest replicates the file on disk with newer version if it's been modified since it was opened. There's no revisions in unmanaged. File properties. So if you use Team Center, or if you've used Team Center, you'll recognize this as a Team Center properties dialog box. So we're now trying to make it look more up to date. So it gives us our file properties and our document metadata easier to find and maintain. We can filter the properties values of the selected document using the commands in the ribbon, then change property values in the table. Enables you to print or copy the contents to your clipboard. Available in managed and unmanaged Solid Edge, Solid Edge Viewer read-only, and Design Manager. Document number and revision no longer required when saving outside of the Solid Edge Data Management Vault. Windows Explorer command. So right-click on options, we're going to get some Solid Edge options available, where we can do a broken link search, back and go, and reports directly from there. Okay, that's it. Notice I've skipped stuff on standard parts. Standard parts have had a bit of a UI change and improvement on there, and there's been a few nice enhancements to Keyshot as well. I'll do that in a future video. Sorry it's taken 70 minutes, but hopefully you've found some useful information out there. Thank you.